Well, hello again. Today's footage is some of the kind of more embarrassing, I guess, in some ways for a lot of guys, but um, I have no shame in the fact that I got stuck because this field is difficult, to say the least. So, this is the third? Wow, I don't remember. Second or third summer that we've had this tractor. I think it's pretty sure it's the third. I think we got it in 2022. And that was the first time I ever tried to brush hog out in the field. And that summer was super dry, so I was out there in mid-May, I believe, and brush hogged almost the entire field. There was one spot I did get stuck, which coincidentally is I had the year before borrowed our neighbor's little 12-horse John Deere tractor and their little 3-foot brush hog, and I was brush hogging the highway in front of our property and found a spot where it sank just enough that I couldn't get it out, and so we ended up having to use the ATV to pull it backwards and get it out. Not a big deal, but on our side of the fence, coincidentally in 2022 with this tractor, I was working my way between a couple of ash trees and ended up sinking, and it was kind of mostly just awkward because the spot that I sank in there, I didn't actually get stuck per se. There was like a 10-foot section of ground that I could actually move back and forth on, but there was a root from one tree behind me and a root from another tree in front of me, and as soon as the tires, front or back, would hit that one of those roots, they would just start to slip. But as long as I wasn't trying to go over those roots, I had plenty of traction. It was super annoying. So we ended up having to pull the tractor out to get over one of the roots, and I couldn't actually turn to try a different angle and maybe like try and get one tire up over a root at a time or anything because of the location of the trees, and I would have ended up running the tractor into one of the trees. I avoided that area this year intentionally because I knew it was wet. I knew I was trying to get out there earlier than I should, but it's mid-June and I'm starting to already suffer from just the canary grass pollen as it is. So it's difficult. Like I can tell I'm have typical hay fever type allergy stuff just from the pollen, and we leave our property or leave the area where there's not as much canary grass or go up into the mountains, stuff like that, and after a couple hours being away I feel fine, and then an hour or two after getting back to our property I start to get stuffy nose and sniffy and awkward allergy type stuff. So I wanted to get that mowed before the main portion of the field actually goes into seed, and I end up suffering. So I took off the backhoe and am hooking up the brush hog, and I gotta tell you, this is one of those tools where I disagree completely with the safety mechanisms that are in place, and I just need a service which there's 2 U-joints that need grease, and then there's a transfer case that needs oil, and it literally should take me 2 minutes to do all 3 of those services. And then I check the blades to make sure they're secure and aren't wobbly, things like that. And I mean, there's not that much to service on here, but as you can see, it's being quite difficult because of the safety features. Now, the risk is there. Like, the drive shaft on a PTO is, in fact, extremely dangerous, and for a lot of the injuries, life-altering and potentially deadly. I don't argue that in the least. I don't disagree with that in the least. But it's also one of the easiest things to avoid. So you don't go playing around with a PTO shaft while it's spinning. Like, that should be common sense. That should be something that you don't need to explain to anybody. Hey, this thing is spinning with the full force of the tractor's engine behind it. It's not going to care if you stick your finger in there. It's not going to care if you get a corner of your jacket caught, or your tie, or a belt, or a pant loop, whatever. It's going to keep spinning pretty much no matter what. I mean, that's especially when you get into a bigger tractor. That should be common sense. But they have all these different safety features and shields and things specifically because that's unfortunately not common sense. It's surprising, but anyway, so you have to sit and move all these out of the way, and they're just very awkward to move. Lots of little clips and things, and it just takes longer than it should, so it's kind of annoying. I have considered many times just removing the PTO guard, but because there is an actual danger there, I have not. So, it is what it is. It's just a venting of frustration, I guess. But, as you can see, it is now running. Excuse me. I'm doing okay talking today, to a degree, but I have to keep pausing and letting my voice rest, and if I talk too much, then I end up in a coughing fit, which is just super annoying. Gosh darn allergies. Anyway, before I get out into the actual forest field that I'm trying to do, Emily had asked if I would take care of this particular section of grass. This little yellow, I believe it's called a buttercup flower, is one that is not healthy for a lot of animals. It'll actually, if I understand correctly, it'll actually kill a cow. It'll make rabbits sick. It won't necessarily kill them, but it could. So it's not one that we want to have in there. And so I just hurried and mowed that. And as I was cruising around here, you can see there's some pretty dark mud spots forming. And then especially right here, I ended up having to lift the brush hog so that I could actually get out, because it was preventing me from being able to move. And you can see here I'm definitely leaving some trails, and I'm thinking in my head, man, it's still pretty wet. Yeah, I started doing okay, and this is like the sort of higher portion of our forest field, and right there's a ditch. It's a shallow ditch, and it's hard to see, and it's easy to miss, but unfortunately I was not successful navigating through that ditch a second time. And so I've got the brush hog raised up and the PTO turned off, so I'm not losing any power to the through the transmission to the PTO. And at this point, I have realized that there is just not much I am going to be able to do. It is going to require extra effort. So I'm trying to see if I can adjust the PTO, because I can tell that that's part of the problem. It's kind of digging, like even when it was fully raised, the wheel was digging into the mud a little bit, and so I want to see if I can alleviate that by adjusting the arms. I don't normally have them all the way up in the position that I'm about to put them in, or that I'm working on putting them in anyway, because the PTO and the backhoe frame don't mix. They get in the way of each other all the time, and so you can't leave the PTO arms on if you're putting the backhoe on. And then when the PTO arms are in certain positions, they actually hit the backhoe arm. It's in my opinion, it's really quite a poor engineering design. One of so many that I have found with this Kubota tractor, to the point that I will be hard pressed to ever buy a Kubota again. In a lot of ways, it's been a good tractor. In so many ways, it has been an absolutely horrible tractor. So at the moment, I'm trying to get some. I was on my way to go get the truck, and then I decided I was going to try and put some branches and sticks under the tires and see if I could gain some traction. Spoiler alert: it stayed stuck. The clay mud in this area, you can see it just fills the tread so badly. If I had either ag tires on the tractor, or especially if I had paddle tires or mud tires, it wouldn't be a problem at all. If I had either of those types of tires, though, it would absolutely completely destroy the ground. I mean, turf doesn't like those tires at all. So I went and found me some bigger sticks, and I'm actually going to try and see if I can work things to make things work, but that didn't work. So we ended up going and getting the pickup truck. Now, in a previous video I mentioned that there were a couple of options. One has horrible tires for this. One has a failing a transmission that needs work. It needs a new torque converter, so it doesn't like to shift properly. And then there's this one, which has pretty good off-road tires. But Emily started to bog down and get stuck in where she was, and I had thought we were actually in a decent spot. So all right, sorry about that. Was talking for too much in a straight shot. So it has decent tires, and it's got good traction. This is the vehicle that I have used last year to get the tractor unstuck, and the reason we know the other truck doesn't work is because as Emily was driving that truck to the tractor, she got stuck. This truck got that truck unstuck, and then this truck got the tractor unstuck. So it was the logical choice to try and get the tractor unstuck. But as you can see, it sunk pretty hard there, and that was a notably higher spot than the ditch. So I got some more chain. I didn't want to use this shinier section of chain because it is weaker. So if I can use these transport chains that I have attached to the tractor itself, they're much heavier duty. They're grade 7 transport chains, and I use them for my logging chains. So I actually pulled up to an even higher spot to try and get some extra traction, and I thought I would be fine, and the ground is just so soft out here. it's the biggest challenge that we face with this property and this section of the property is that the ground pools. So here's some photos. That's where the footage ended for the day, and you can see I'm basically sitting on the frame at this point, which on the one hand, because of the backhoe frame, I'm not really worried about the underside of the tractor because it's got this big giant steel frame that runs the entire length of both sides of the tractor, so it's actually sturdier than your regular tractors that don't have the backhoe frame. But unfortunately, these tires just lose traction way too easily. So this is where we ended up pausing for the night, and this is where the 91 F-150 ended up. And it has a similar scenario to what I was experiencing with the tractor last year. The mud filled the tread so badly that I'm not quite stuck per se. I can still move back and forth a little bit, but I just can't get out of that rut. A very, very, very annoying scenario. So this is the obviously the rear tires, and then I'll show you here the front tires. And you can see I was trying to move into different areas, different angles to try and make sure I had, that I was staying out of the ruts, and that wasn't working very well. I'm actually a little concerned that I might have damaged the four-wheel drive, because when I stopped it, it was making a weird clanking sound. And apparently, in using the four-wheel drive, I ended up actually overheating it. So when I shut the engine off, the radiator overflow ended up bubbling out, which was just super frustrating at the time. To discover that, on top of having now two vehicles stuck, it's losing some of the antifreeze, and it's not a healthy color of antifreeze. It's not supposed to be orange, so it's definitely in need of some service and love. But as I mentioned, I haven't decided how I want to handle this particular truck and what I want to do with it. So we'll see what the future for it brings for it. But anyway, I went back out the next day, and somebody had suggested maybe trying to find some old rug or something, and it just so happens we have a whole lot of old carpet. So I cut up some like 6 or 7 foot pieces and tried them, and that almost worked, but not enough. And then because the carpet slipped under the tires, it started to bunch up, and before I realized it, I believe what happened was the right side, the rear tire that you're looking at now, the carpet got bunched up, and I think it broke the valve stem, because as it was spinning, I just suddenly heard a pop and hiss and lots of air and steam, and then the nasty smelling foul beet juice smell, which is kind of something that you probably don't want to smell. Old muddy beet juice that's been sitting around inside of a tire for a couple of years is not a pleasant smell. So at this point, the tractor is free from the spot that it was. I've got some more footage of that process. We grabbed a 12,000 pound winch and a frame to mount it on, and some hardware to safely work that, so we actually can strap it to a tree and pretty much just work it wherever we want. And that had its own setbacks, and we'll cover that in the next video, one of the next videos anyway, for that process. But it did get stuck again because of the flat tire, so we've got to go back out and give it a little bit of a winchy nudge, and then we can move forward and hopefully get it completely free and then get the tire fixed. So anyway, That's where we're at for today. As always, thank you for your time. God bless you and yours, and hopefully you're able to stay safe and healthy out there.